Good evening to our viewers here in Guyana and online. I'm Travis Chase with the Wednesday, May 30 edition of the HGP Nightly News. Here's what you need to know this evening. The recent hike in fuel prices has caused a protest by minibus operators who ply the East Coast Georgetown route. Reduce fuel prices or permit higher fares, they demand. More from Royden James, who was at the scene of the protest.
The fares are up for persons who live on the east coast of Demerara and utilize the public transportation. Minibus operators are contending that it cannot be business as usual as gas price continues to soar. The price for gasoline has leaped from $200 per litre from less than a month ago to $230 per litre. Diesel is now being retailed at Guy Oil for $219 per litre, while kerosene is $145 per litre. At some private gas stations, the price for gasoline is now $247, while diesel is a whopping $233. At Rubis, gasoline is $234, while diesel is $224 per litre. The rise in gas prices has caused the Route 44 minibus operators to pull their vehicles off the roads in protest. They want the intervention of the relevant authorities.
We want to know if the government can do something about the gas. Either drop the consumption on the gas and let the gas go back to the normal price, or raise the fare. Busman and drivers, conductor and drivers taking a beating out here.
We work in these buses, we got to carry the owner's target. Plus, we ain't getting for make nothing for me, neither the driver. So it's just the owner gaining and benefiting. What I'm saying is that we need a raise of fare. We just raising by $40, right?
Guys, a bus driver, and when I don't pay the man, me ain't got nothing left to go home. So probably me wife may go look somebody else.
Even as the Route 44 minibuses protest, the Route 50 buses from the Rosignol route are cashing in on the East Coast passengers, creating another cause for protest by the East Coast drivers. Nevertheless, it was total disorder among the East Coast minibus operators.
Yeah, we need this fare for a raise, right, boss? Because the gas raised 3 times already for the month, right? 5 times, right? 5 times the gas raise, right? We need something more because we get bills to pay, we get family to maintain, we have enough things to do. Everybody get family without here, you know. What you want to do? You want to live down close all the time?
5 times in 1 month the gas raise. And I feel it because I'm a conductor. You understand? And I get me kids. I have my kids.
Yes, you want it. Yes, you want it. Raise.
But so man, we really mindful for the fare raise because we want pressure poor people, but we really want is to the gas drop.
So come on, they got to do something about this. This is all the gas station. You can work for $120, then the people them give you $100. From here to tongue them give you $100. Sometimes them give you $40, $60, then gone away. How you can work like that?
Among the options available to the government, if they intervene, is to adjust the tax regime to cushion the effect of fluctuation in fuel prices on the international market. During last Thursday's post-cabinet press briefing, Minister of State Joseph Harman was asked if the government has any plan to provide some sort of subsidy to provide relief.
I cannot tell you about anything like that now. It didn't come up at cabinet, and once it comes up at cabinet, I'll be in a position to say something. But right now, I can't say whether in fact there's any consideration for either an increase or reduction in the subsidy on gasoline.
Since that time, no other official statement was made by the government. In September 2017, world market prices for fuel increased due to the hurricane conditions in the southern hemisphere, which resulted in Guy Oil adjusting the prices in gasoline, diesel and kerosene to a higher cost. Again, recently, Guy Oil adjusted its prices upwards. The average price of gasoline around the world is $1.15 per litre. Reporting from Lusignan on the east coast of Demerara, where minibus operators are protesting. My name is Royden James for HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Royden. Prison officers who were in charge of the lockups on Mother's Day when Facebook photos surfaced showing inmates consuming alcohol are to face charges and their jobs are in jeopardy. Kristen Macklingam reports.
Charge sheets for the errant prison officers are being prepared, but some external information needs to be provided before this matter can come to a close, says Director of Prisons Gladwin Samuels.
This will serve to establish if indeed the prisoners were in contact with some prison officers who were named as having provided the alcohol and drugs that were seen on the Facebook posts.
Mr. Samuel says penalties can range from monetary fines to dismissals, provided that there is sufficient evidence, but that based on the segregation of inmates that the prison service has in place, many of those prisoners who were seen imbibing should not have been in the dormitory at the time.
So it shows clearly that it was a breakdown in terms of the management of those prisons on that day that resulted in that. And my thing is, even if for some reason they were able to get to the area that they are not authorized to be, there should have been some early detection of those persons in an unauthorized area and the necessary action taken. From statements reviewed, it also established that even when the prisoners were found to be operating as though they were under the influence of alcohol, the appropriate steps were not taken by the persons on duty.
According to the Director of Prisons, thus far, the number of persons who smuggled the alcohol into the prisons is yet to be determined, but the prison service has been provided with names. Also, Mr. Samuel said reports are that telephone contact was made between prisoners and prison officers in order to negotiate the alcohol and partying transactions.
So we are awaiting information to validate that. However, as it relates to those persons who were actually on duty on the day in question, so far we have identified 4 persons who would have failed in terms of effectively carrying out the standard operational procedures, which would have resulted to the easy movement of the contraband within the prison. Because closely examining the photographs posted on Facebook, it would show you that the drinking took place in 2 parts of the prison. The dining hall, where prisoners would be during the day, and then the number 1 dormitory.
Mr. Samuels added that although prison officers caught in these situations may say that it is due to the level of their salaries, that's no excuse.
But I would say to ranks at musters and other engagements that if for some reason you find the salary of the prison service is not enough, then you should leave instead of endangering the lives of others. Despite all of the bashing the service has been getting in the media, which is rightfully so, because if there are lapses, then we must be chastised for that. But it has served not to change the attitude of some prison officers.
Reporting for HGP Nightly News, I am Kristen Macklingam.
Thank you, Kristen. After the break, alleged rejection of students' cultural wear at Mays. Private schools are not a law unto themselves, says the Chief Education Officer. And American Airlines is coming. Stay with us. HGP Nightly News will be right back. Welcome back to the HGP Nightly News. We have word from the Ministry of Education on that alleged rejection of a student's cultural wear at a private school. Private schools are not a law unto themselves, and the Ministry of Education has zero tolerance for discrimination. The widespread outrage over the alleged discrimination against a primary level student in the indigenous dress by the staff of a private school in the city has attracted the attention of the Ministry of Education. Chief Education Officer Marcel Hudson spoke with Nightly News via telephone on Wednesday. Hudson said that the Ministry of Education is totally against discrimination.
The Ministry of Education has made it very clear we are not in the process of discriminating. We continue to promote the culture of all our people. I could say that much. And we will continue to do. That is our view. We promote the culture of all our people.
The school on Tuesday denied engaging in any discriminatory behavior and disputed the account of the child's parents of what happened. The school added that there is no national policy regarding what is acceptable with regards to exposure of children. This private school added that the incident should prompt a larger discussion amongst schools and government entities about what truly is the acceptable social standard in our evolving country. Hudson maintains that private schools are not a law unto themselves.
Of course, maybe it's a private school, but we make it very clear that private schools are not a law unto themselves, and we promoting the culture of all our people, and that's where we stand. And whatever has to be done in relation to that will be done.
Last Friday, the private school hosted Culture Day. The 9-year-old child, according to his parents, had not been allowed to enter his school fully dressed in his indigenous wear, and that staff, including the security guard, teachers, and the headmistress, had stated that his attire was inappropriate. The child wore no shirt with a beaded chain and a decorated headband, while his lower body was covered in a skirt made out of tibisiri. The child was later dressed in a t-shirt after his wear was considered inappropriate.
But has the ministry written to Mays, or has Mays written to the ministry?
I can't say what has happened. I know the matter has engaged our attention, and the PR persons were looking at that. So we might see something forthcoming shortly.
The child's mother claims that her son had been traumatized by the incident after he had been taunted by students throughout the Culture Day at the school. Travis Chase, HGP Nightly News. American Airlines is gearing up for its first flight to Guyana in November this year. Officials of the airline are to meet with the local aviation authorities within 2 weeks. Rodin James reports.
In March of this year, American Airlines announced its intention to introduce 4 new destinations to South America and Mexico. Among those listed were flights between Miami and Georgetown beginning December this year. Nightly News understands that tickets were on sale from early April, even though the airline had not informed the Civil Aviation Authority. Head of the Guyana Civil Aviation Authority, Mr. Egbert Fields, said Tuesday that minor issues with the airline have been worked out and things are on stream.
We are moving ahead. They'll be visiting the authority within the next 2 weeks. They have already sent in their package for application, so I can disclose this. It is. And we are moving forward to have a commencement somewhere, hopefully on the 15th of November, all things being equal.
Mr. Fields said that he does not foresee any challenge in approving the airline's application once the country's aviation laws and regulations are respected.
American Airlines is very much on stream in coming to Guyana, and the government, and I know the Chetty Jagan International Airport is going to be happy that there's an entity helping with the uplift out of Tamari, because as was reported, we've already seen an increase in passenger carriage over the last couple of months for this year when compared to last year.
Mr. Fields noted that American Airlines has indicated that the company intends to spend a long time in Guyana and, if possible, extend to other places. As a start, the airline will only be flying to and from Miami and Tamari.
So American Airlines is very much on the cards. There are other airlines just stating their intent, but nothing concrete, and we don't disclose anything until an application is made. Then you know that they're serious.
American Airlines Inc. is a major United States airline considered the world's largest airline when measured by fleet size, revenue, scheduled passengers carried, scheduled passenger kilometers flown, and the number of destinations served. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Over at City Hall, we tell you that the Georgetown municipality is adamant that there will be no swine rearing in the city. A Princess Street swine farmer who has been wrestling with City Hall to keep her pigs in town has 2 weeks to relocate. The owner earlier this month moved to the courts to restrict City Hall from dismantling the swine farm. At City Hall's statutory meeting on Monday, councillors were informed that the request was denied by the courts, thereby giving the council clearance to take action. Town Clerk Royston King expressed disappointment over the fact that while the council was lenient by extending to the farmer extra time to relocate, the farmer made steps to frustrate the work of the council.
It's really unacceptable. In fact, it's illegal. It's strictly prohibited by law and also by the regulation. There should be no rearing of swine or bush hog in the city of Georgetown. And the way we are demarcated, that is strictly prohibited.
The regulation states that swine rearing should be done no more than 164 feet or 50 miles downwind from residences and water catchments. Ideally, agricultural lands are strongly recommended. This should be done to ensure that there is no intermingling of the swine with freshwater catchments used for human consumption. Town Clerk King had this to say about the council's next move.
Well, we will give them another 2 weeks before we move against them, but it is completely unacceptable. You couldn't rear pigs in a cemetery. It's unacceptable.
Travis Chase, HGP Nightly News. You will hear from Kristen Mackingham now that lack of cooperation by the National Two-Shows Council and other interest groups is being blamed for the hold-up of the Amerindian land titling project.
From the Minister of Indigenous Peoples Affairs is that more could have been accomplished and quite sooner. But due to indigenous groups and leaders' non-cooperation, this was not achieved.
As a result, we, through the government, we came up with the the COI, the Commission of Inquiry, to look at these issues, which unfortunately we were unable to have the support of the NTC and other interest groups.
Not all of the new communities applying for absolute grants for the first time or other indigenous villages that are to be provided for with absolute grants for demarcation only have been issued with the relevant documents. That's what the minister says.
We have recognized over the period that a number of these investigations were of having issues, and because of many of them, especially in these areas, we wanted it to be thoroughly checked out so that the persons, the villagers, don't feel that they have been cheated out of any land issues.
However, as time winds down for the expiration of the Amerindian land titling project, the ministry is still hopeful that its target can be achieved.
This group would have been able to address these issues, have lengthy discussions, and ensure that all of these issues dealt with as FPIC is requiring. So it has been timely, but we are in a better position now to overcome these issues. Having regular discussions, revisiting these communities to have these sorted out. We have been really having some serious issues with some communities.
Minister Alicock added that the Commission of Inquiry into these lands is still in operation, and it is expected that the NTC and other indigenous groups see the importance of the land titling project being completed before...
Gordon James reports.
Almost every week, the Guyana Power and Light issues a power watch which shows planned blackouts for several areas. It has been described as an unbearable situation by many. But even so, Mr. Patterson explained that the power company is prioritizing the upgrade of the transmission and distribution system and replacing aged transmission lines.
The good news is that when we do get this new generating set, what we'll be doing is for the high voltage section, which is taking the power from the generators to the substation, we'll be building a new infrastructure for that. So therefore, obviously, when this is finished, that line will be more reliable and stable. So therefore, the total shutdowns will be greatly reduced.
Earlier this month, GPL was penalized by the Public Utilities Commission for failing to improve its service and meet targets. The utility company paid a fine equivalent to 5% of the total value of the dividends that would have been due to the shareholders, which is the government of Guyana, for the year 2017.
I absolutely supported the position of the PUC to hold GPL accountable. The PUC judges GPL on about 8 points, and then they're all GPL's responsibility to the consumers, to the customers. So the points would be like the number of outages per year. You know, I mean, it's supposed to be only 75. The GPL last year, the year being assessed was 125. So therefore, obviously, they didn't hit that target.
Other areas where GPL failed during last year include the ability to achieve an average availability of 80%. The company reported that average availability was 78.2%.
So the other part of the puzzle is the transmission and distribution center. Now those are the power lines, those are the wiring and all things like that. Sadly, that we have a very old and aged system. You know, I don't know if you think of any of the old wards. You know, I think you probably grew up in working rough.
According to the minister, the planned natural gas project will help to resolve the generation issue and provide enough capacity at a reduced cost to customers. The move to utilize natural gas is a transition to Guyana's green economy, which is a high priority for the government. Royden James, HGP Nightly News.
Thank you, Royden. Prisoners who took part in the recently launched Guyana Prison Service Inmates Survey don't have to worry about any form of victimization, since those who conducted this study are not associated with the prison service. Kristen Macklingam reports.
This prison survey was facilitated by the Citizen Security Strengthening Program CSSP Component 3 and the University of Guyana, and its role in the reduction of criminal recidivism and in general crime and violence in society is of paramount importance to Guyana. That's what the CSSP's project manager, Clement Henry, says.
They are used to collect data on issues such as the criminal careers of persons in conflict with the law, their ties with family, their gang and neighborhood activities prior to their arrest, their access to guns and drugs, their challenges with defense attorneys, the level of corruption abuse at prison locations, the effectiveness of rehabilitation reintegration programs, among others.
Mr. Henry addressing the gathering at the recent launch of the Guyana Prison Service Inmate Survey. Meanwhile, according to the Director of Prisons, Gladwin Samuels, one of the most important aspects of this study is the fact that it was conducted by persons who are not in any way associated with the prison service.
So it provided the inmates who were identified to be more open in terms of giving information to the researchers. For many reasons, persons are somewhat hesitant in terms of being fully open with prison staff or members of the prison staff because they believe they might be treated in a way that is not fair when they provide certain information that is not promoting the image of the prison service.
Mr. Samuels added that this survey complements administrative data and allow policymakers the chance to hear from clients of the system on topics that are usually absent in administrative data.
And it is also through these findings that policies are derived that can serve to improve our delivery of service as an organization. The Guyana Prison Service, with one of its main mandates to deal with rehabilitation of offenders in order to prepare them for re-entry into society, is something that we have been paying attention to, despite the fact we recognize the need for us to improve in terms of the number of persons we capture. Efforts are continuously being made in order to do so.
Reporting for HGP Nightly News, I am Kristen Macklingam.
Thank you, Kristen. The Chief Cooperative Development Officer has replaced the Management Committee of the GPSU Credit Union with an interim management committee headed by retired Justice Prem Prasad. The offices of the credit union located in Hatfield Street, Newburgh, reopened for business on Wednesday. The Ministry of Social Protection stated that Auditor Mr. George Vaughan was appointed to commence work